Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there, welcome back.
As you can see, guys, we had an X-class flare, an X 1.95, that, the energy may be impacting you already, even though the KP hasn't moved at the moment. It will be moving, and we will have probably either a level 3 or level 4, a strong or severe geomagnetic storm underway tomorrow, more than likely. Just be aware of that because this really seems to hit sensitive people big time.
It's really important. Do things like turn the radio down, turn the TV off, do things, protect your nervous system.
Yeah, I mean, how many times do you hear that? Protect your nervous system from anybody in the media. I don't think you ever really hear that, but there's a lot here that I want to touch on. Almost 40 killed in a high-speed train accident. It was a collision in Spain. Do you know Spain has more trains that go over 150 miles an hour than any other country? I thought that was very interesting. But this was a sad situation. At the moment, at least 39 people have passed on, and 73 people were injured with the crash. Two trains coming together. It just, it kind of boggles the mind in this day and age. Why are we having all sorts of crazy situations with trains, planes, and automobiles? Remember that movie? It seems like things are malfunctioning, or people are malfunctioning, or maybe both.
Well, things aren't working right, and I really wanted to cover this more on the upcoming eclipse, but we're going to see a lot of hiccups, trips, bumps, bruises before this eclipse. So this is what I expect.
Yes, and please make sure you subscribe to all three channels on YouTube. As you know, we have different stuff going up on different channels at different times. Hundreds dead as southern Africa pounded by heavy rain. Floodwaters destroyed homes, farmlands, infrastructure across Mozambique, South Africa, and Zimbabwe. This is hurting the ability again to feed. There's just been one blow to the food system after another, after another, after another. When we look at this and we wonder, can mud floods happen? I think we were witnessing a mud flood. Again, this has just done nothing but amp up. And in recent decades, as you see here, South Africa has faced several historic floods. Mozambique's 2000 floods caused by heavy rains linked to Cyclone Leon Aline killed around 800 people, submerged large areas of land. In March 2025, Cyclone Jude brought downpours and flooding to northern Mozambique and parts of southern Africa, causing infrastructure damage, displacement, and fatalities. In early 2025, it was one of its deadliest rainy seasons in years. 66 deaths from heavy rains, flash floods, landslides, lightning strikes, and related incidents during that 1 year period. Now, this, amplified by going around the world, and in some cases having these wildfires, which in some cases have been seen to have been purposely started, as we were talking about Chile and Argentina, how people were caught coming in from a different country in a totally different part of the world and literally were caught setting wildfires all over. And the thought is for profit, so they can then go back and either themselves or companies that they work for come back in and buy property at fire sale prices.
And it's just not fair, but that's currently the world we live in.
Oh, there's really nothing fair in this world that we live in at this point in time. But karma is a thing, and it's going to come back around. And the system that we see ourselves in is one that needs to be swept away because again, it hasn't been fair to really anybody on this planet. Rapidly spreading wildfires, right? And massive acreage. Again, this is a beautiful area, but we've seen this all over. We've seen our own California have season after season of wildfires that each one set a new record. So one of the largest fires was near Penco, threatening multiple structures, including the Penco Lircan Hospital and a gas storage facility. Authorities implemented safety protocols to prevent secondary hazards from possible explosions or gas leaks. To about 20,000 people had to leave their homes as the fires moved quickly through these areas, and then you had people in temporary shelters. It's just another horrible situation. How about this? Literally, this is not an optical illusion. What the heck? I mean, this is record snow in Kamchatka. Now, Kamchatka is somewhere that gets a lot of snow, but as you can see here, it's literally like 15 stories high in some areas. That is insane. Record snowfall. It's literally burying buildings in towns. Yeah, and I promise never to complain about 6 inches of snow in NYC again. In fact, state of emergency. This extreme snow situation has killed at least 2 people, literally left people up on their rooftops trying to unbury themselves. This is just insanity. So what's going on with the wacky weather? Is it just simply our geomagnetic shields dropping because of a perfectly natural event? Or are there some technologies in play as well? You know, you have freeze warnings, cold weather advisories all the way down into Florida, southeastern Texas. This, again, it threatens things that don't usually get exposed, like oranges in some areas and other types of crops, to these type of temperatures. When you have these wild swings, these are the worst things possible, because again, they'll come in, they'll damage the entire plant system. Talk about damaging. What the heck is going on here? As you see, all right, the Civil War, it looks like, it's there are energies, there are entities out there that really want to bring about that left versus right civil war. This is Minnesota. Leftists are now showing up armed in Minnesota, counter conservatives supporting ICE and opposing radical Islam. This is Eric Doherty reporting. As you can see, people are openly arming themselves at this point in time. The Pentagon readies 1,500 soldiers to possibly deploy to Minnesota. Again, President Trump has been threatening things and then backing off, threatening, backing off, that type of thing going on. But take this other side into consideration, as Governor Walz, who's under investigation, again, corruption, sends in the National Guard. So wait a minute. So you have the governor sending in the National Guard, and you have the government possibly throwing in, our military. Wait a minute. That sounds like they're being set up to be on opposing sides. Well, then you have Stephen Miller here saying only federal officers are upholding the law in that area. Local and state police have been ordered to stand down and surrender. This is President Trump's top aide, Stephen Miller. Shockingly declared local and state law enforcement has been ordered to stand down and surrender. This was on a post late Sunday night. Wow, so this is the answer to that question. So basically, he's undoing what the governor is telling the National Guard to do.
What I see happening moving forward, this is really bad, because I see these controllers setting up every reason in the world to bring out things like sound weapons and microwave weapons and things that can really cause serious harm. They're going to say, well, I don't want to be around crazy people with guns. Understandably, why would they? But then they're going to have to do something, so they're going to bring out the sound weaponry. All of it is wrong on every level. This shouldn't even be happening, but it is.
Yeah, order out of chaos. We know how that works, and we'll have a Patreon and members video going up probably today possibly tomorrow, going into greater details with those data center issues, which is something very big, very, very big. It's bigger maybe than most people realize. New York City socialists prepare mass mobilization of 4,000 anti-ICE army. So New York City's Democratic Socialists of America are moving to train and mobilize more than 4,000 anti-ICE activists into rapid response units, which will be designed to interfere with federal deportation operations. Yeah, this is exactly where we are, and it gets you thinking about what we were talking about yesterday with the different types of humans that are intermingling here. Is there any truth to that? So, any decision about the future status of Greenland belongs to the people of Greenland and the Kingdom of Denmark alone. This is Keir Starmer. He didn't say or do the same thing for the people of Chagos. Monumental hypocrite. Yeah, absolutely. Again, just a talking head. And, Sir Keir Starmer, this again is showing you that the system, it really extols the virtue of talking heads and puppets that do exactly as they're told and bear the brunt of, again, the public blame when things go wrong. But make no mistakes, he is not really making any major decisions. And more people understand this than ever when we look to everything going on in Greenland. On Russian state TV, they're laughing their heads off at Europe. They say, yeah, again, the chaos, here you have NATO literally going to face itself. And you have John Fetterman here. Which one is the question? Because, John Fetterman, we've seen different earlobes, different facial state, structures. There's obviously at least 6 or more people playing the character John Fetterman. And so he fires back at a reporter fear-mongering over President Trump acquiring Greenland. Yeah, again, don't people take note of this? I mean, we've shown, and people have shown for years, there's more than one person playing this role. And that should be the dead giveaway. NATO has been telling Denmark for 20 years that you have to get the Russian threat away from Greenland. Unfortunately, Denmark's been able to do anything about it. So you see this post again from President Trump. This is a 1942 map of the NWO. Notice Canada, Mexico, and Greenland are all part of the United States. Yeah, there's all these different plans. I think they have contingency plans. We just saw a big economic deal between South America with several countries coming to an agreement with Europe. Again, I think there's all these contingency plans. I think that they literally go by AI to determine what's going to be the most effective. Don't forget, though, I mean, if people think that Denmark was very gracious with Greenland, it wasn't. Again, it's known that in Denmark, the natives in Greenland, many of them were forcefully sterilized. This is just a fact. Forcefully sterilized. Without, in many cases, without, having a clue that it was happening. Not just that, but also over here in the 50s, they took 22 Inuit kids from their families, shipped them to Denmark to, again, change the culture. This happened with the Native Americans in the United States, too. In fact, those of us that have been here or had family here in the United States for several generations, what's going on is just simply the same thing that happened before to the indigenous people here in what was, before the United States came into being. A lot of different tribes, and sometimes warring, sometimes not. But, again, sometimes they'll try to justify taking over a people and destroying their way of life by saying they were just, brutal, bloody savages and this and that. Well, yeah, genocide's pretty bloody. Genocide's pretty brutal. And again, the system has done that time and time again.
And the controllers we have now this is called civil. So, you really have to ask the question and look who's pointing the finger. And whenever you see a finger pointing, you can usually see 3 or 4 fingers pointing back. So I don't know. This is really sad how they do this to the children. They take them away, they put them in boarding schools, and, they usually get abused, and it ends up just a tragedy for many generations after that because of the abuse. But they knew that. They knew going into it. It's just all so sad.
It is, and for a fact, this exact same thing that happened here in Greenland happened in our own New Mexico and Arizona area. Again, when we look to the area, the Four Corners area, and you literally just have to listen to what happened. This was happening at the same time, 60s and 70s, that it was happening in Greenland. This was happening in the United States, again, in the American Southwest, and I'm sure in other areas as well. We just know firsthand of accounts in that area.
And look at this, giving girls and women fitted with IUDs, given an injection, sterilized without consent. And today, survivors demand compensation, and authorities call it a dark chapter in history. There's really no amount of oops, I'm sorry for this that can fix the generations that have been so shattered and broken in the lives, and what has happened to the lives, and the trauma and the depression and things that go along with generational trauma. A dark chapter in history. I mean, who's making the decisions? I think we need to look very closely at this, because we have things going on in our own country right now. Do we have a hand? Do we have the ability to slow things down and smooth things out? I think we all better do our part as best as we can to try.
This exact thing happened again in the United States at the exact same time. So obviously this is part of a bigger plan that spans multiple governments. Meanwhile, how did Representative Ilhan Omar's wealth get to be so, just overrun? Her cup is overrunning, overflowing. Yeah, again, how does somebody turn, granted, their salary, being a representative or certainly being a senator, it does come with a good pay by average standards. But how do you turn it into 30 plus million? How about the family wealth? I mean, could it be that any of that $9 billion Somali social services fraud scandal directly benefited her? Is it possible? I think so. I mean, again, acquiring $30 million in just a year, 1 year's time, corruption pays, but it's being exposed. And here you have Donald Trump sets a $1 billion price tag for permanent seats on the Gaza Board of Peace. You got to buy your way in. And, he even invited Putin and Russia. Again, $1 billion. Think about what we see in the Gaza Strip. That is the level of destruction that we see in the American Southwest in certain areas. And we wonder, how could that happen? To me, when everything was happening in Gaza, this is what's happened all over the world, time and time again. It's just an atrocity. And, to put a board of peace price tag at $1 billion, it shows you just how every aspect of this entire system needs to be just flushed down the toilet. New level of brutality. Iranian doctors put the death toll at over 16,500. We don't know. At least 330,000 injured. There's a signal there again. Communications between the secret societies always ongoing. Meanwhile, Brits hold mass protest against Chinese super embassy in London, built right next to some very, very sensitive communications infrastructures for the UK. Could it be because the power structure is being handed over to the CCP? That's my guess. I mean, again, there's going to be oversight from the new power structure. And this is what they've been planning for years. China really has laid low compared to many other nations, and just been working on building their infrastructure, their manufacturing. They've been hoarding tremendous amounts of gold and silver, precious metals, as well as food. Their stocks are much higher and overflowing than really any other country on earth. When I mean stocks, I mean, again, things like commodities. So they've been set up to be the new model for the NWO. It's pretty obvious. Meanwhile, here you go. First they sold you the sunscreen, and then the treatment that the sunscreen can, bring about. Because again, it was discovered that Johnson & Johnson's loading their sunscreens with carcinogenic chemicals like benzene. Yeah, the very same cancer their company treats with billions of dollars of profit. This is what the system does. And so, a lot of people are getting out of the system as much as possible. But when they charge you, like this guy, to pump water, you're pumping water from your own well on your own land, and the state wants to charge you from it. Well, you have to acknowledge this is just complete slavery. And it's an open slavery that they want you to accept.
Yeah, this has been going on for a little while, so I'm glad to see people speaking up about it. I hope they continue to push back. It's very unfair. Why should you have to disclose the private water on your private property? Just what's the real answer?
Well, the real answer is they want you to accept being a slave. There couldn't be any other way. People wonder what really went on, in the last, say, 150 years ago. The technologies. This is from January 20th, 1913. What type of weapons is this? Are these just spotlights, or are these airships dropping bombs, or what's going on? Airship raids. There was a phobia, and granted, perhaps a good reason for a phobia when World War I was starting out, of the airships being able to strike silently, whether we're talking the Allies or the Axis. It really gets you wondering as to what type of weaponry has been involved for how long. And, again, we have all these interesting visitors, that are watching our situation. Because, again, now at least more people are understanding that intelligent beings can look just like light.
It can look very, very, very beautiful as well. As you can see here, these are different beings with separate personalities. They genuinely feel like elders going over the land, and I'm sure they have a lot of communication with the people there. Whether the people realize it or not, there's communication happening here and vibrations moving to and from.
We are in a sticky period with lots of challenges, and so lean on each other. And here you have a Cincinnati Zoo. A baby cheetah was raised without its mother, was paired with a protection dog for emotional support, and they became best friends, and they're going to stay that way. We could definitely mend the fence with our neighbors, whatever persuasion they are. It's simply a case that you take away the manipulating energies, replace that with an energy of love and compassion, and then we could be heading into a whole new direction.
Indeed.
And as always, guys, we want to invite you to join us on Patreon and also on members here on YouTube. As well, there's exclusive material that comes up typically each week, and we couldn't do it without you guys. We look forward to some lives this week as well. Source bless and namaste.
Namaste.